What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today's video, we are talking everything shaky heads, summer worm fishing, and why you should be throwing a shaky head right now. Now, this isn't going to be your typical shaky head video. Today, I'm going to talk about the different styles of heads, hooks, keepers, line ties. We're going to go a little bit in depth. Hopefully this video is not too long for y'all. But short answer, if you guys are just clicking on the video and you want to know which shaky head to go throw, this guy right here, 6-inch straight inch, your favorite 6-inch straight, your favorite worm. This is actually a robo worm, and that is a finesse head by Dirty Jigs Tackle. I'll link all the products down below in the video description. But if you guys want to stick around, we're going to talk about the different types of heads, when to use them, the different line ties, the different hook keepers, hooks, all of that stuff. So if you guys are just here for the quick answer, down below I'll link you guys all the gear. If you guys are just new getting into shaky head fishing, summer worm fishing, this guy right here will put fish in the boat no matter where you are in the country. But for all you other tackle junkies and all you kind of finesse fishing, summer worm fishing students or nerds like I am, hopefully today's video will shed a little bit of light on why there's so many different heads, so many different worms on the market. Now, trying to break down shaky heads is kind of like, I mean, it's a giant category. Any 4 to 12-inch worm you could put on a shaky head. There are probably 50 or 100, if not a couple hundred different types of heads on the market. So hopefully, like I said, after this video, you guys will have a better understanding of the different products, the different heads, the different baits, and you guys can pick an educated decision based on the information that helps and matches your fishing style. So shaky head, again, it's typically some kind of weighted jig head. Typically, I rig them weedless. You know, you can rig them with an exposed hook, but it's more of a finesse presentation. Yes, you can get into the big giant worms, so we'll talk about that towards the end of the video. But for the most part, when you're talking about a shaky head, you're talking about anywhere from a 4 to 8-inch worm, typically finesse gear, light line, anywhere between 10 and 17 pound test. But this is a shaky head. Exposed hook, weedless. But when I'm looking at shaky heads, so say I'm in a tackle shop or I am shopping online, tackle warehouse. There's 4 things that I like to think about, or that I think about when I'm looking at new products on the market or comparing stuff I see to the stuff I already use. Number 1 is going to be the head shape. You know, just like a jig, there are so many different styles of head shapes. You know, you got kind of the wedge style head, you have kind of the archy style head, more of like your traditional football style head. You have horseshoe shaped heads. That's the number 1 thing. I look at the shape of the head, because depending on the type of fishing you're doing, if you're fishing around rock or grass or wood, depends on what type of head you want to throw. Different heads come through different covers differently, and we'll get into that a little bit deeper here in a little bit. I look at the hook. You know, I don't want to buy a shaky head that comes with a no-named hook. I like a head that has either a Gamakatsu or a VMC or an owner, you know, a well-known hook brand. That way I have confidence that when I do get that bite, I can get that big fish in the boat and I don't have to worry about the hooks bending out or the hook being dull. You know, there's a lot of products on the market that won't name what kind of hook they put in their bait. You know, and that's the thing that's hooking the fish. That's the thing that's keeping that fish pegged. So I want to know what kind of hook is in that head. The third thing is going to be the keeper system. You know, there's a lot of different baits on the market, heads. I want to know what is keeping that bait on that shaky head. And the last thing, I know it might seem a little ridiculous to some of you guys, but the line tie, you know, is it a 30 degree? Is it a 60 degree? Is it a 90-degree line tie? Am I fishing this bait vertically in brush piles, or am I fishing it out there in front of me and dragging it back off long tapering points? All of that stuff comes into play when I'm trying to figure out which shaky head I'm gonna rig up. Got my shaky heads there. Got my mag shaky heads there. You know, that's for your big summertime worms, 8, 10, 12, 14-inch worms. But so now that we've talked about the 4 different things that I like to look for in a shaky head, let's talk about when and why. So let me rig this guy up. This is actually right here. This is a Owner Ultra head. Kind of has that football size to it, a little bit wider than you know, like this guy right here. I'll show you guys the difference. I typically like to throw a shaky head rigged weedless. Now, if I'm fishing a highland reservoir and I'm fishing typically open water, so let's say I'm fishing mud bottom, just kind of dragging a worm. Say I'm fishing Shasta, you know, or Oroville, you know, some kind of those real clear highland reservoirs, then you can get away with throwing an exposed hook, like this guy right here. The benefit of throwing the exposed hook is when that fish eats that bait, eats that head, it's going to eat it, and all it takes is a little bit of pressure for that hook point to get into the roof of the mouth. Whereas something like this, it's going to take a little bit of force, either the fish swimming away or me lifting my rod tip or setting the hook, to get that hook point to pop through the bait and into the fish's mouth. Now, the benefit is I can throw this setup right here, right in to a brush pile. I can throw this right around dock pilings. I can throw it right in and through the grass. And for me, especially summertime fishing, if I'm not fishing out deep in open water, I am throwing this bait into something. So I typically throw a shaky head that has a keeper on it and allows that bait to be rigged weedless. Here's a couple for you. That's that Owner Ultra head. This is that Canterbury. This one's made by Dirty Jigs Tackle. That's more that Arky style head. Again, rigged weedless. Here's that Finesse head. Again, rigged weedless, straight tail worm. And even the big guys. This is that Strike King bull worm, rigged on that Strike King head. And that's actually the Hog Farmer head. And this is a the Yum Mighty worm. I think it's a 10.5-inch worm. But again, all weedless. The other benefit to weedless is, like I said, you can fish it through the stuff. You can fish it around your heavy cover. You can fish it through your brush piles, around your brush piles, your rock. Biggest thing in the summertime is grass. So I like to go lightweight, so like an 1/8 ounce head, rig weedless, throw it through grass. Kind of talked about the heads real quickly. I'll get into some of the other ones in just a second. The next thing I want to talk about on this head specifically, I was thinking about it, is the keeper system. A lot of these heads that I'm going to recommend have some kind of twist lock keeper system on them. Now the benefit to these versus, let's show you one that doesn't, that just has a set keeper system. That right there, that is, see that hook keeper system, that bait keeper system right there? This is an awesome open water head. This is actually the Rhino by Picasso. It's designed by Aaron Martins. It's a great open water head. It's kind of got a recessed line tie. But I'm stuck with that keeper where it is. A head like this, I can bend this keeper either up or back closer to the shank to change the angle that my worm sits on the shaky head. So if I rig my worm on there, again, you can't do that with one of these heads that are kind of cast in with the head or cast on the head. I can take this head and bend it down or up if I want it to stand more vertically or the opposite. Hopefully that makes sense. It just gives you a little bit more adjustment on how straight your worm sits on that hook. So getting back to the heads, so primarily if I am fishing grass, wood, or I am skipping, if I am fishing around docks and I'm going to be skipping a bait, 100% of the time I'm going with that Canterbury head. That let me undo this for you guys, just so you guys can see this. That archy style head. It's more of a flat face on it, lighter. I go with either an 1/8 ounce or a 3/16. I can get that bait back up underneath those docks, those dock pilings, get that bait back there in the shadows where those fish are going to be. Then it's weedless. I don't have to worry about the grass or anything like that. But if I'm fishing around docks or skipping docks, 100% of the time I'm going with that bait right there. Hopefully you guys can see that. If not, I will link everything down below in the video description. As opposed to this guy right here. See, that has more of a finessey, kind of angled wedged head on it. This is what I'm going to be fishing if I'm fishing your rock, your grass, not grass. Grass, I'm going with this guy. If I'm fishing just your rock or your open water stuff, your grass lines, if I just want to fish, if I just want to grab something that it's going to be weedless and I'm going to be fishing offshore, that is when I go with this guy right here. Couple other options for you. Here I have a creature bait rigged on that head for you, just to show you guys. You don't have to just throw a 6-inch straight tail worm on a shaky head. You can get really, there's a lot of baits on the market that will fit on a shaky head. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, just because I did pick it up, I talked about the different keeper system on these guys right here. It's going to be rigged weedless. If you're one of those guys that wants to fish an exposed hook, a little bit of snips, or easy with the snips, or a little bit of tugging on with the pliers, you can actually take that keeper system off, and now you have your exposed hook on that same head you would throw if you wanted to fish it weedless. So you can make some adjustments to those heads and fish the way you want if you want that exposed hook or weedless. So heads, again, I typically go with that finesse head. Now that head does come in a 4 and a 5/0. Typically it's a 4/0. I'll throw a 5/0 if I'm throwing a little bit heavier weight in a bigger worm. But typically it's going to be, they come in 3 sizes. I think 1/8, 3/16, and a 1/4. So typically those are 3 sizes that I have depending on what I'm fishing. If I'm fishing deeper, obviously I'll go heavier. But so the finesse head, the archy style head, and that owner ultra head is an awesome offshore head. Again, if you're fishing around rock piles or ledges and breaks with a lot of contour and stuff, that little wider head on that prevents that bait from getting hung up as easily. And obviously owner hooks, right? You're gonna have a nice, strong, very sharp hook right there. And then I wanted to talk about that exposed hook, that Picasso. It's called the Rhino. Like I said, the Rhino head, it's made by Picasso, designed by Aaron Martins. It's got that keeper system that I showed you earlier built in on the shank of the worm, of the hook shank. It's got a recessed line tie, and just has a different presentation in the water. It's got a real flat head, so makes that bait stand up on the bottom easier with uneven surfaces. We're not always fishing on the bottom that's as flat as your kitchen table, right? There's going to be rocks, there's going to be pea gravel, there might be drops and stuff. So this has a couple different little angles on it to help that bait stand up. But if you're looking for just to get a good shaky head to fish in open water with an exposed hook, that's the bait that I recommend for you right there. One other one that I wanted to talk about real quick, I haven't got to spend any time with, but I just ordered them, is going to be these guys right here. This is a tungsten shaky head. So you know the benefits of tungsten, right? You get a smaller head with a heavier weight. It weighs more than lead. But more importantly, with a bottom contact bait like a shaky head, you need that sensitivity, you need that feel, and that tungsten's gonna transfer that sensitivity a lot better than that softer lead. You know, that's more dense. It's just gonna transfer that feeling a lot better than the lead. So I do wanna play around with those. So I ordered a couple packs. I'll let you guys know in a future video what I think about them, but so far they look good. Look like they got a good hook in them, got a good keeper system, and more importantly, they're tungsten. So hopefully I didn't breeze by those head types too quickly. Again, just to refresh, that got the Arky style head. That's going to be your skipping head around your brush piles, around your grass. You got that finesse head. It's kind of just a do everything head, unless you're skipping docks or fishing through grass. Got that kind of that football style head, horseshoe style head, that owner. That's going to be your do everything head if you're fishing offshore around rock. And then your exposed head right there, that rhino. So that's typically how I pick the head that I'm going to be rigging up. I try and keep it simple as much as possible, right? Obviously, you can just go grab a pack of shaky heads and throw them around the docks, in the grass, in the rocks, in the wood. You might lose a lot more or a few more, but if you pick the right head, you're going to have a better day fishing, right? You're going to have less hang-ups. You're going to keep your baits more often and probably catch yourself more fish. So that's the heads. The keeper systems I did talk about a little bit. Again, my favorite, if I'm going weedless, is the twist lock. It just keeps that bait on there. You know, and like I said, if you like this head and that style of hook, but you don't want it rigged weedless, then just bend off or cut off that keeper system, and now you have your traditional exposed shaky head right there. So little shaky head hack there for you. Hooks, again, you got to go with some kind of name brand hook. You don't want to go with an off-brand, just in case you get that PB or that fish of a lifetime. You don't want to be bummed out that you bent out a hook or you didn't get a good hook set into them because the hook was dull or something like that. And then line ties. Let's talk about line ties real quick. You know, one of the things that makes this bait special or talked about is that recessed line tie. It does matter when you're fishing. Let's say you're fishing heavy rock, you're fishing rock piles. You know, when you're down there hopping this bait along, it's hopping up and down, right? You're shaking it, that little tail's down there dancing. Your line tie is typically what is out in front of your bait. So look at these two differently. See that? This is going to be out in front. This is kind of recessed. Now, if you're having an issue with break-offs or fraying, that sort of stuff, either go up in line size or go with a bait that has some kind of recessed line tie, because out in front of the bait like that, that is what's going to be hitting that rock first, your line, right? So as you're hopping that bait through, you have something like this. Your bait is, or your line tie, your knot is out there in front of the bait. You have more chances of nicking your line. Just be careful as you're hopping it. But that's typically what you look at when you look at different types of shaky heads. Where the line tie is, the angle of it. See the differences? So that's the four things: the head shape, the keeper, the hook, and the line tie. Now, once you have those kind of boxes checked, you know what kind of structure you're going to be fishing. you know if you're going to be fishing around docks or offshore, if you want an exposed hook or you want to rig it weedless, that will help you pick the best shaky head for you. So now let's talk baits, because I have quite a few of them. Again, if you're looking just to buy a pack of worms, go out and catch them. 6-inch robo worm, really hard to beat it. You know, they're on the West Coast for many, many, many years. Lots of money has been won on a 6-inch robo worm. Biggest fish I've personally seen caught on this worm right here was a 12-pound, 2-ounce largemouth that my buddy Wes, fishing partner at the time, caught during a TOC that won us a boat. So, worm right there. That is a must. Now, if you want to get a little sneaky or do something a little bit different, I have a handful of baits for you. I'll link all of them down below in the video description. But at least once I show you these baits, that'll kind of get the wheels turning and you can pick your favorite bait that you want to rig on your shaky head. Again, the benefit of a shaky head, you're down there on the bottom, you're either dragging or you're hopping it and letting it fall. Hop, let it fall through the grass, pop it up through that rock, let it fall. But it's a bottom contact bait. Typically it's weedless, and you're just trying to get those fish that are down there sitting on bottom to eat something. So you can go from a small presentation to a big presentation, or a creature bait. So let's talk about that. Again, just get into it. Go with a 6-inch. Go with your favorite 6-inch straight tail worm, and you guys will be set. Some of my other favorites in that category, this guy right here. This is the squirrel tail worm by Big Bite Baits. Now look at this bait up closely. Again, I'll link it so you guys can click on the pictures and check it out. But it's kind of has the first probably, I don't know, quarter of the bait looks like a trick worm. But then it scales down to this really narrow cylinder main part of the worm, and then has a bulbous tail that floats. Again, just like your Ned rigs, people are always talking with your shaky heads about how you want that bait standing up and you want that tail down there dancing. So as you fire this bait out there, you let it sit on bottom, you're not even doing anything with the rod, and that tail's just down there, just swaying in the current, moving in the water. If you want a straight tail worm that has a ton of action, this is one of my favorites. Colors, guys, I'll link some of my favorites in all of these worms. I'm not going to go too in-depth with colors. Go natural, your green pumpkins, black flakes. Go your June bugs. Again, I'll link my favorite colors down there in each of these different worms I show you. But those primarily are my favorite summertime colors. But that guy right there is awesome. Only because I have 2 Big Bite Baits packs here. I actually really like a lot of these. They're inexpensive baits in their categories, but I have a lot of confidence in these baits here. Caught a lot of fish on them, and so only because they're sitting right next to each other, I'm going to jump into a little creature style bait. But this guy right here, this is the flying squirrel. Looking at it, it kind of looks like a brush hog, but again, it has 2 of those squirrel, I guess, legs on it. And again, you want to break these off so they have a ton of movement. But rig this on a shaky head. Now you're giving these fish something they haven't seen. They haven't seen as many, I won't say any, as many creature baits on a shaky head that I'm sure they've seen a 6-inch worm. Again, that's rigged on that Canterbury head. But that guy right there is awesome. Now back into the 6-inch worm category. I actually got one rigged up right here for you. Now I always say this bait wrong, and this time I made a mental note. I'm gonna say it correctly. This is the Magnum Baits Wormser, not Wormster, Wormser bait. You can see it's kind of a, let me hold this up for you guys. Got a flat, skinny tail. Again, so that bait's gonna be down there dancing in the current. This is their 6.5-inch version. They have 3 different sizes. I think it's It's either 6, 8.5, and 11.5, or 6.5, 8.5, 11, something like that. But again, I will link them down below in the description. But that guy right there is an awesome 6-inch shaky head worm. If you guys are looking for, we talked about the straight tail worms. I talked a little bit about that squirrel tail and that flying squirrel. The last worm that I want to talk about is hands down our favorite worm. We've talked about this bait now for several years. This guy right here. This is the net bait T-Mac. Now you guys have all heard of a zoom trick worm. This bait really stood out when we were doing all of our underwater footage. It looks a lot like a trick worm. It just has better action under the water, and you don't have to bite the head off. It's got a fatter head at the top. It's not really tapered, so when you're putting it on your head, you don't have to really bite off the first 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch to make it flat. It already comes like that. But this guy right here is hands down our favorite shaky head worm. We've talked about it for many, many videos, many, many years, but the T-Mac, that is an awesome, awesome bait. Now let's talk about one more creature style bait before we move into some of the Magnum stuff, Magnum baits. I talked about that flying squirrel. My other favorite creature bait that I like to throw on a shaky head is going to be this guy right here. This is the Destroyer by Missile Baits. See, it's got that nice ribbed body, lots of long tentacles. Again, a lot of movement. As you hop this bait up, as it falls down through the grass or along the grass line, wherever, those arms are just down there kind of twisting and flapping. Just a ton of movement. And again, it's just a presentation that those fish haven't seen as much as, your normal straight tail worm, right? So that guy right there, that's that Destroyer. It's not the baby Destroyer, which also works well. That's the full-size Destroyer on that finesse head. These guys are awesome. I typically throw the bigger worms on a bait caster if I fish in a body of water where I'm trying to catch 4 to 12 pound largemouth. I'm typically throwing it on a little heavier head, going with a bigger profile bait, and I'm throwing it on a bait caster. So that is my favorite baits. That robo worm, hands down, easiest bait to go out there catch fish on. The T-Mac, the flying squirrel, the squirrel tail worm, the Destroyer, and the Wormser, guys. Those are all winning baits, and they all act differently in the water. They all have different movement, and man, these blow-ups. Another big blow-up right over there. I swear, every time I'm out here trying to shoot a video for you guys, it's like Free Willy. These fish are just out here jumping, exploding, and trying to distract me. But again, these baits that I just listed, I'll link down below in the video description. But summertime shaky head worm fishing, those baits right there are a must. Again, I'll link my favorite colors down below. Now, if you are, real quickly, I'm going to dive a little bit into the Magnum worm category, just because you can't do a summer worm shaky head video without talking about ledge fishing, big worms, and these are two of my favorites right here. Again, the heads, this is that Strike King head. It's got that same twist lock keeper system on it. it's not pivoting. Well, I guess it is pivoting. Free swinging, I should say. Whereas the Hog Farmer is a lot like the Dirty Jigs tackle. It's just molded into the head. Again, you can bend that or pop it off if you don't want, but that you can adjust how the angle of it and how your worm sits on that hook. So both great products. The Hog Farmer has some really good hook sizes. Same with the Strike King. But as far as worms, I'm going with that bull worm, either the 8 or the 10.5, I believe. This guy right here. We've thrown these a lot on Clear Lake, out here on Chickamauga, down in Mexico. Again, the benefit of throwing a worm like this is you can catch 1.5 pounders, but you limit you limit the amount of small fish and you target those bigger fish. You're trying to go after a bigger fish with a big meal presentation like that. Again, you can get those heads all the way up to like 3/4, maybe 1 ounce. So if you're out there fishing ledges or you're out there dragging deep rock piles, you can get those bigger heads to hold and keep those big worms down. But there it is, guys. Hopefully it's not too long. I don't know how long of a video this is, but I just wanted to go over just the basics of the shaky head itself, and then give you guys some reasons why to pick one or the other depending on the conditions that you'll be fishing, and then just go over a handful, 5 or 6 different baits for you guys that have really produced for us throughout the years. One other thing, I haven't talked about this. I don't know that we've ever talked about this, but this is really cool. I will link it down below in the video description, but this is a bait knocker. Now, back in my tournament fishing days, I used to carry a handful of these in my pocket, not this specific one. I used to make them from scratch. I would go buy like your, a 3/4 or 1 ounce sinker, and then I'd put some kind of snap, like a swivel, like a snap on there. And what you do, say you fire this big worm out there and you're hung up in whatever, right? So this is down on the bottom. You got your line up to your rod. You undo the snap, put this over your line. Now it's got to be for a lure that's not narrower than however wide this is right here. There, that way you guys can see that. Otherwise it's going to slip right over your bait. So put it over your line, lock it down. This thing's going to fly down on your line. So keep your line tight. It's going to fly down and it's going to hit. It's going to come down your line. It's going to hit your lure and knock it backwards. Then you can just reel it up. So it makes your lure go backwards, get unhung. It will save you a ton of money. If you want to go out and make your own, go buy some heavy weights, buy some snaps. But if you just want to be able to click on the link and buy them, I will link them down below. But this is an awesome tool, if you will, to save your summertime shaky heads. As always, guys, if you guys learned something from this video, please give us a like. That always helps the algorithm and helps our channel grow. Thank you guys so much. We're coming up on 500,000 subscribers. That's insane to us. We never thought it would get that big, but we appreciate each and every one of you. If you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on notifications so you know when we're putting out videos. But again, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming along. We appreciate you as always. If you have any questions, please leave those down below in the comment section. I will try to get to those as soon as possible. But again, thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon, guys.